Good morning, members of the spring graduating class of 2014, faculty, staff emeriti, honored guests, parents, colleagues, and friends. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 127th spring commencement of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. This is a very special occasion for all of us, and particularly for the graduates.
John Lewis is a genuine American hero and a moral leader who commands widespread respect in the chamber. Please join me in welcoming our commencement speaker, the Honorable John Lewis.
Good morning. Oh, good morning. You look so beautiful. You look so handsome. Justin, thank you for those kind words of introduction. I think your introduction is going to be much longer than what I have to say. But thank you, brother. Thank you, Mr. President. Madam President, President Bell, distinguished faculty, parents, family, friends, member of the Board of Regents, honorable elected officials, and to the class of 2014. Congratulations for being here. Congratulations for succeeding, for never giving up, for never giving in, for keeping the faith, and for keeping your eyes on the prize. Now, you heard in the introduction, and I must tell you, I'm happy, I'm honored to be here, to come to this university where Martin Luther King Jr. spoke, to stand here, to be in this special place, a little more than 50 years after the March on Washington, 50 years since the Mississippi Summer Project, 49 years since the march from Selma to Montgomery. Yes, I feel more than lucky, but I feel honored and blessed to be here. You heard Justin tell you that I didn't grow up in a big city, like Prince Anne, or Buffalo, or New York, or Detroit, or Philadelphia, or Chicago, or Baltimore. I grew up on a farm in rural Alabama. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer. But back in 1944, when I was only 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4, how many of you graduates remember when you were 4? Now, what happened to the rest of us? But back in 1944, when I was only 4 years old, my father had saved $300. And with the $300, he bought 110 acres of land. We still own that land today. On this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. On the farm, it was my responsibility to care for the chickens. And I fell in love with raising chickens like no one else could raise chickens. I know you graduates don't know anything about raising chickens. You may know something about Popeyes, Kentucky Fried, Chick-fil-A, Bojangles, but you don't know anything about raising chickens. Let me tell you what I had to do as a young black boy growing up in rural Alabama during the 40s and the 50s. To take the fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, and wait for 3 long weeks for the little chicks to hatch. I know some of you smart and gifted students, along with some of your smart and gifted faculty members, some of your wonderful teachers who taught you well, are saying, now, John Lewis, Why do you mark those fresh eggs with a pencil before you place them under the setting hen? Well, from time to time, another hen would get on that same nest, and there would be some more eggs. And you had to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. Do you follow me? You don't follow me, it's okay. It's all right. So when these little chicks were hatched, I would fool these setting hens. I would cheat on these setting hens. I would take these little chicks and give them to another hen. I'd put them in a box with a lantern, raise them on their own, get some more fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under their setting hen, encourage the setting hen to stay in the nest for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling and cheating on these setting hens. When I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do. It's not the most loving thing to do. It was not the most nonviolent thing to do. It's not the most democratic thing to do. But I was never quite able to save $18.98 to order the most inexpensive incubator or hatcher from the Cecil Roebuck store. Now, I know as a graduate, you're too young to remember the Cecil Roebuck catalog. Maybe your parents or grandparents. Maybe some of your teachers, but they're not quite that old. It was a big book, heavy, thick. Some people call it the ordering book. Some people call it the wish book. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. But I just kept on wishing. But as a little boy, about 9 or 10 years old, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and my cousins, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard like you would gather here in this hall. And we would have church. My brother and sister would just line the outside, but around with my first cousin around the chicken yard, but all of the chicken would be inside. And I would start speaking and preaching. And when I look back on it, some of these chicken would bow their heads. Some of these chicken would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I am convinced that some of those chicken that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me today in the Congress. And some of those chicken were just a little more productive. At least they produce eggs. Well, that's enough of that. When we would visit the little town of Troy, visit Montgomery, your president, Dr. Bell, is my homegirl from Alabama. Well, when we would visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, visit Birmingham, I saw those signs that said white men, white women, colored women, white boys, colored boys, white girls, colored girls. Going downtown to the theater, all of us little black children had to go upstairs and all of the little white children downstairs. I would come home and ask my mother, ask my father, my grandparents, why? And they would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But one day in 1955, 15 years old in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on our radio. The action of Rosa Parks, the words of Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me. I was so inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that in 1956, at the age of 16, we went down to the public library, trying to get a library card, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only, not for coloreds. I never went back to the Pike County Public Library in the little town of Troy, Alabama, until July 5th, 1998, by this time in the Congress, for a book signing of my book, Walking with the Wind. And hundreds of blacks and white citizens showed up, and at the end of the program, they gave me a library card. Dr. King, that I met in 1958, met Rosa Parks in 57. This man inspired me to find a way to get in the way, and I got in the way. I'm saying to you, as you leave this great university, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, as you leave here, find a way to get in the way. Find a way to get in trouble. good trouble, necessary trouble, make our country what our country should be, and help change the world. You can do it. You have received a good education. You cannot just stay and be still. You got to get up, speak out, and move your feet. Move your hands and make some noise. The world is waiting for you. When I was in school, when I was sitting in, getting arrested and going to jail, been beaten and left bloody and unconscious, we hadn't heard of the internet. We didn't hear about Facebook, iPhone, and iPad. We didn't have a cellular telephone. We didn't have a fax machine. But we used what we had to bring about a nonviolent revolution, a revolution of value, a revolution of ideas. So as young people, you have the energy, you have the education. Commit yourself to help mold and shape this little planet we call Earth, and leave this little piece of real estate a little greener, a little cleaner, and a little more peaceful for generation yet unborn. Yes, I know your teachers, I know your president have said to you, do well and you should do well. But others have said, do good. Get in some good trouble. Just think a few short years ago, people in our home state, many could not register to vote. People had to pass a so-called literacy test. There were black lawyers and teachers and doctors, college professors were told they could not read or write well enough. There were some people that were asked to count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap, the number of jelly beans in a jar, but we changed that. If someone had told me when we were walking across that bridge in Selma, been beaten, left bloody, and unconscious, that one day I would live to see a man of color as president of the United States, I would have said, you must be crazy, you must be out of your mind. That one day I would have an opportunity to travel to South Africa and meet Nelson Mandela and said to him, Mr. Mandela, I'm John Lewis. He said, John Lewis, you don't need to tell me anything about you. I know all about you. He said, your movement inspired us. You got to get out there and help create the beloved community. It doesn't matter in the final analysis whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. We are one people, we are one family, we are one house. We all live in the same house, not just the American house, but the world house. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., my big brother, my mentor, said on one occasion, we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we'll perish as fools. Gandhi put it another way. It is nonviolence or non-existence. Can we live in peace? Can we just get along? One of the people that beat me and left me bloody and unconscious on May 9, 1961 during the Freedom Rides, came to my office in Washington a month after President Barack Obama had been inaugurated with his son and said, Mr. Lewis, I am one of the men that beat you. I was a member of the Klan. He said, I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? His son started crying. He started crying. I started crying. He called me brother. I called him brother. Someplace along the way, if we get it right here in America, we lay down the burden of division and separation. We can create the beloved community and be a model for the rest of the world. Go out there and fight the good fight. And never, ever give up. Be bold, be courageous, and find a way to get in the way. Good luck, and may God bless you.